So our next storyteller is Karen Tate. She's a speaker, teacher, feminist, and social activist. She's written 2 books about goddess and sacred places. She hosts the weekly radio show Voices of the Sacred Feminine, and she considers herself one of the luckiest women in the world. Not only has she been married to the most wonderful man in the world for 27 years. Aww. There's Roy. But as a recovering Catholic, she escaped the long arm of the Pope and the Bible Belt too. Congratulations. Welcome to Karen.
Hi. Maybe you're like me. For a long time you thought everyone had a better family than you. You wished your family reflected that Norman Rockwell print, especially your mother. You thought that everyone had that Leave It to Beaver mother, you know, the one that baked cookies and came to your school concerts and encouraged your dreams. A mother you felt safe sharing your deepest hopes and fears with. Then at some point, well, you figured it out. No one had that perfect mother. You know, with the curls and the high heels, vacuuming the floor. And many of us, you know, we just counted ourselves lucky to have survived that childhood home, and we got out safe and maybe sane. It was a long time before I realized what hype poor mom had to live up to, what restrictions her generation had on their lives as women. No wonder she and so many women of her time took those nerve pills. But, you know, we're a product of our mother and our mother's mother and our mother's mother's mother. Take, for instance, my mother's mother, my grandma. Her name was Bertha. I think she kind of looked like a Bertha, too. As an older woman, she was robust. She had big red hair and that teased helmet hairstyle that was the rage, I guess, back then. And she loved to have fun. I loved hearing her tell the story of having a few too many drinks and waking up under the Christmas tree one Christmas morning. But her early years, well, that was another story. When she was a young woman in the South, it was okay to marry off your 14-year-old daughter to a 30-year-old bootlegger, even though she hadn't gone to school because she had to stay home and take care of her 7 brothers. Imagine how exciting it must have been to Bertha to get away from caring for her brothers and moving on to Mary, who must have seemed like to Bertha this swashbuckling older man until he got caught bootlegging. Well, he was thrown into jail, and Bertha, my grandma, she cried herself to sleep many a night while he was in the clink. You see, dear Grandpa, I never knew his name, I never met him. Well, he had this young girl convinced that baby growing inside her wouldn't grow without his nightly, shall we say, visits. You guys, shame on you. But my mother, Evelyn, she survived her mother too, just as I survived mine, along with some good lessons and good memories. Me, well, these are some of my stories and memories with my mother. I'd have to wake up every Saturday morning to Evelyn standing in the kitchen with her short red hair coiffed perfectly, wearing that house coat in her slippers, puffing on that cigarette, wagging her finger at that joyless, life-sucking list of chores she always had taped to the refrigerator. Vacuum the house, dust this, do the dishes, clean your room. The list that so frustrated me and felt like a weight around my neck. I think what made me the maddest was there was never a list of fun things to do, just work. But that was Mom's comfort zone, work, not pleasure. Well, now I can't survive without my lists. It staves off chaos. Yes, I have my daily list, my weekly list, my monthly list, my yearly list. All of these things to do. Anytime I put a big red line through a project completed, it's almost orgasmic. I can take a second to breathe and experience sheer satisfaction with another job done. Mom, fortunately, may have made me a list maker, but these days, the list on my refrigerator door, well, it's got more fun things to do than work. Another story, I'll never forget the time Mom planned to make her first pot of gumbo. Seemed uneventful enough, but as I'm walking to the kitchen, I hear her screaming. I run into the kitchen, and there she is trying to wrestle with a dozen live crabs that were scurrying across the kitchen floor. She's got her metal tongs, they're moving toward her and have their claws raised high. She must have looked like the 50-foot woman to those crabs. And it was no easy feat catching those crabs for that gumbo pot. And I have to admit, I wasn't much help because I just laughed and laughed. Evelyn, my mom, she wasn't much of a cook. Her cakes from scratch would never rise. I can't ever remember her baking cookies, but boy, she was a crab wrangler. Then there was the first New Orleans Saints football game Mom went to with Dad and I. It was long before there was a Superdome in New Orleans. Back then, the Saints played outdoors in Tulane Stadium under the hot sun and humidity of the Big Easy. Dad and I were serious about the game, but Mom, she was a fish out of water when it came to sports. But the beer was cold. Imagine my embarrassment as a 12-year-old watching her mother suddenly, all alone in our section of the stadium, suddenly stand up and begin screaming out loud, "Go, go, go, go!" and jumping up and down, throwing her full cup of beer on the head of the guy in front of us. I'm not sure what was worse, the look on the guy's face drenched in beer, or the fact that Mom had just unknowingly been cheering for the other team as they ran for a touchdown. But it all worked out. The guy actually turned around and thanked her for that cool reprieve from the hot sun, and Mom turned to Dad and I with a look on her face as if to say, "What are you two looking at?" Then, when I grew up and moved away to California, escaped my life in New Orleans, Mom and her new husband, Louie, they'd come to visit me and my husband, Roy. She'd spend days on the train to get here because she was scared to death to board a train. Roy and I took her everywhere, showed her everything, because Evelyn took few opportunities to have fun, even in a town like New Orleans. We did all the tourist stuff, but her favorite thing was simply sitting on Venice Beach and people watching. But one night, we thought we'd surprise her with something a little different. We took her to medieval times. Here, I'm thinking, she'll loosen up for a few hours. She'll be overwhelmed by the spectacle. Yeah, right. When the feast arrived, you were meant to eat everything with your hands, like any self-respecting medieval reveler. But Evelyn surprised everyone, cool, calm, and uptight, as if it's the most natural thing in the world to do. She reaches deep into that dark abyss of a purse she carried, and like a magician pulling something out of his hat, she comes up with a knife, a fork, and a linen napkin. That was Evelyn. That's the way she rolled. But here's my favorite and last story of Mom. Every Mardi Gras, she had one annual excuse to pull out her infamous leopard print jumpsuit and actually wear it in public, to my utter embarrassment. Looking back, I'm sure she probably looked pretty sexy for the time. There she'd be, thin and trim, sitting on the hood of the car, waiting for the floats to pass by, puffing her cigarette, her red hair perfectly coiffed, and her black high heels, and what I called her Catwoman suit. I wanted to fade away into the crowd, become invisible, be anywhere but there, where people might see me, figure out she was my mother. But, you know, life has a funny way of playing tricks on you. Now, I've become that blonde in the cat suit, and those times I was totally mortified have become some of my best memories. Thanks, Mom, for your good taste and sense of humor. And Roy, That list is waiting for you on the refrigerator. Thank you.